Welcome to my kcse revision channel. Teacher James Marita, the World's Voice High School. Kindly subscribe my channel. Click the notification bell such that you get notified once I upload a new video. Today we are looking at Form 1 work, our topic 1, a summary of what we have already done. We are looking at the summary of lesson 1 and lesson 2. We talk about the definition of terms. We can define what is chemistry. Then we talk of the branches of chemistry. We go and define what is a drug and drug abuse, what is matter. We can also talk about separation of mixtures. But in this separation of mixtures, methods of separation of mixtures, some of them that you learned in your primary science. But these mixtures, we are going to discuss it more detail in our topic 2, that is classification of substances. Today we are looking at Form 1 work. Now we start with the definition of chemistry. So in the definition of chemistry, you need to define, you come with the correct terms. So the definition must be well defined, the correct spelling, and also you have the correct terms which are used in this definition. So in any question which requires you to define, you either score 1 mark or you lose a full mark, because the definition must come out very clear. So if you are required now, for example, define what is chemistry. When you are required to define what is chemistry, you are supposed to understand around 3 things. That is the structure, you understand the properties, and then you understand the composition and also the changes that matter undergoes. So if you understand those 3 parts, the 4 parts, that is the structure, the composition, and the properties, and the changes that matter undergoes, now you will be able to define chemistry. So you define as is the branch of science. This chemistry, as you can see on your screen, it is a branch of science that deals with the structure, how the substances are being structured. It talks about the composition. What is the composition of the substances? You talk about the properties, physical properties and chemical properties of matter, and the changes that the matter undergoes. So in definition, you should talk about the structure, you talk about the composition, you talk about the properties, and also talk about the changes that matter undergoes. That is how simply you can be able to define what is chemistry. Then from there, we learned that there are 4 branches of chemistry, whereby we have a chemistry which deals with the start of physical chemistry. We have inorganic substances. We have a chemistry that deals with it. We call it inorganic chemistry. Then we have the organic substances. The organic substance, the chemistry that deals with this is organic substances is called organic chemistry. And then we have the analytical chemistry. So we have the 4 branches of chemistry. That is inorganic chemistry. Then we have organic chemistry. We have the physical chemistry, and finally we have the analytical chemistry. Then from there, from your primary science, you also define what is matter. From your primary level, you define that matter is anything that has weight and occupy space. That is what you define in your primary level. So matter is anything that has weight and occupy space. Examples of substances which can occupy space, we talk of the solid substances. They are able to occupy space. Liquid substances, they can occupy space. And also some other gaseous substances. So you define matter as anything that has mass and it occupies space. So it must has mass and it must have to occupy space, and then it has mass. From your primary science, you also learn that there are 3 states of matter. You talk about the solid. Solid, for example, you can talk of your exercise book, you talk pens that you are using, you talk of vehicles, you talk of a chamber, you talk of a panga, you talk of a chair, anything which is a solid and which has mass and occupies space. So that one is a state or in a solid state. Then we have another state, we call it in a liquid state. Liquid states here now, talk of milk, talk of water, talk of kerosene, and very many other examples. We have also that another category of matter is gas. We are going to start about the gases. Now, gases you can talk about, we are going to talk about the oxygen gas, the hydrogen gas. When you go to Form 2, you will talk about the carbon dioxide gas. When you go to Form 3, you talk about nitrogen gas, sulfur oxide gas, and many others. But in the Form 1 level, you will understand that we have only two gases there. That is oxygen gas and hydrogen gas that we are going to study later. So we have in solid state, when you talk about solid state, the particles are closely packed, as you can see from your screen. And the particles are very closely packed. A solid has what we call a divinite shape. So the solid has the shape. As you can see, if you can see this one has a divinite shape. And then now it has a volume. You will be able to find the volume of this one, or you can be able to find the volume of this book by taking you can be able to find the volume of a cube, not this book. If you can look at something that is that box which is carrying some exercise books, so you will be able to find the volume. So that is an example of a solid substance that you will be able to find the volume. So the solid has a definite volume, and also they have a definite mass. You will be able to measure the mass of this book, you will be able to measure the mass of this one, so they have a definite mass. In a liquid now, liquids are made up of the particles which are moderately closely packed. And then here, they do not have a definite shape. Most liquids normally, they take the shape of the container. For example, if you can have water and you pour water in a cup, that water in a cup, they will normally take the shape of that cup. So if you can also drink water. If you drink water, they will take the shape of your stomach. That means, so if it takes the shape of your stomach, it means that water, the liquid water, it has no definite volume. It normally takes the shape of a container. So if your stomach is a container and if you drink water, it will take that shape. Then we look at again that this liquid, it also has mass, it has a definite mass. So you will be able to measure the mass of water, the mass of milk, and others. Now, when you talk of the gas particles, the gas particles are far apart. They are far apart and they are free from each other. So we are saying that they are far from each other. They have a degree of freedom. They are able to move from one point to another. They are in a random continuous motion. So when we talk about that one, the gases also, they do not have a definite shape. You cannot be able to talk of what is the shape of oxygen gas, what is the shape of air. So you cannot be able to talk of the shape of a gas. And also, it has a definite mass, but very negligible, a very small masses that you will be able to talk about. Now, we have what we call the interconversion of matter. When you talk about the interconversion of matter, this is a situation where a solid substance can change to a liquid substance, then it can change to a gaseous substance. The same, it can also change from a liquid substance back to a solid substance, it can change from a gas substance to a liquid substance, and then we have to a solid substance. So I was saying that when you look at this diagram here, you can see that liquid, there is a process we call melting. From a liquid to, we have a change of state whereby a solid state to a gaseous state. So this process here, we call it sublimation to a solid. This process here is called deposition. So in an examination setting, then you name the process whereby the solid will change to a liquid, a liquid will change to a gas, changes to liquid, and then a gas changes to a solid, and then we have a solid changes to a gas. Then we can also talk about the separation of mixtures. At your primary level, you discussed various methods of separation of mixtures. But this topic of mixtures, it can be discussed in detail in what we call the classification of substance, which is, I think, topic 2. So, when you talk of a A mixture is a combination of two or more substances that can be separated by physical means. That is a very simple definition of a mixture. What are now from your primary level that we have methods of separating mixtures. One method of separating mixture is what we call sorting. Sorting this involves physically picking a pure substance, picking one pure substance from the mixture. An example here, we can talk about a mixture of maize and beans. If you want to separate them, if you want to have beans from maize, or you want to have the maize from beans, you will be using what we call sorting. This one you will be using what we call the hand picking, whereby you will be sorting either you pick the maize or you will pick the beans. But this one does not mean that when you are taking the daily that you normally pick the beans and then you leave the maize. It does not mean like that one. So it means in a daily situation, that one is so different. In a daily situation, it is different. So that method we call it sorting. There is another method here, we call it a decantation. In this decantation here, this is now in the forest when we have, for example, if you mix water liquid with the sand, if you mix water liquid with the sand, you can be able to separate first by pouring out that liquid and then you leave behind the sand. In that case, now it means that in this process, these methods of the decantation, we have that solid, it is insoluble in liquid. So, for example, if you put sand in water, that sand does not dissolve. Because if it does not dissolve, now you will be able to decant by pouring out the liquid. For example, you're pouring out water from the mixture where the solid is insoluble in a liquid. And a good example of that one is a separation of sand and water. You can also talk of skimming. This skimming it involves scooping of floating particles. For example, those people who are boiling, for example, milk, you will have the cream or the milk. So if you want to remove that cream from milk, you use the method we call skimming. The cream normally floats on that milk. So the process, the methods of obtaining that cream, we call it skimming. We are going to discuss another more methods later in our topic of classification of substances, which is our next topic. Now, what are the conductors and the non-conductors? What are the conductors and non-conductors? These are some of the things that you learned at your primary level. That conductors, these are the substance which allows an electric current to pass through. For example, you can talk of the copper wire. The wires, I mean the aluminium wires. These aluminium wires, they are used, the one that you can see, they are using to make the overhead cables. They are used to make the overhead cables because they allow the heat, they allow electricity to move from one point to another point. So that substances which allow electric current to pass through them, we call them the conductors. Those non-conductors are those substances which does not allow electric current to pass through. An example, you can talk of a plastic, you can talk of a wood, you can talk of this, like this, my pointer, this one, this is a form of a wood. It will not be able to allow the electric current to pass through. So this one here, it is an example of a non-conductor. So another another part that we discussed about drug and drug abuse. So we define a drug as drug is a natural or a man-made substance that when taken, it changes the normal body functioning. So that is how we can define a drug. So there is another part that we need to define what is a medicine. So when you talk of a medicine is natural or a man-made substance that when taken, it changes the abnormal body functioning to normal. This one you can go in a chemist, and then you have a drug from there. Then the one that you take that then changes your body from abnormal functioning to normal functioning, that one is called a medicine. There is another term we wanted to define. Another term that we are defining is what we call a prescription. A prescription here in this case is a written medical instruction from a qualified medical officer to a patient of a correct type of a medicine to take, period between one infect to the other. I'm talking about the quality officer. I don't mean the witch doctors and the witchcraft. So the one that you are getting, the one that you are getting from the witch doctors and the witchcraft, we cannot say that that one is a prescription, but it is something that is making you to lose your money. So you must have the prescription must come from a qualified medical officer on the instruction to a patient, and what is the type of a drug and how many times the drug should be taken between a particular day. Then there is what you call a dosage. A dosage is this one here, is the correct quantity of a drug required. So when you talk about dosage, this one is the correct quantity of a drug required. Now, in this prescription, you might get that some of you have gone to hospitals or you have gone to a chemist and then you have bought some kind of drugs. Now, you might get that there is a prescription written 2 times 3. What does this one mean? So 2 times 3 means that these two here, it represents the quantity of a medicine. That means now you are supposed to take 2 drugs, or you are supposed to take 2 drugs, 2 tablets, for example. So you have these two, it means the quantity of a medicine. While these 3 here, it represents the number of times the drug should be taken in 24 hours. So you get this one very clear, that if you want to get the time intervals, the period between the time intervals at when you are supposed to take a drug, you take, for example, the 24 hours in a day, for example, here, you take this 24, and then you divide it by the number of times. For example, the number of times here, we have been given two drugs in 3 times. So 3 times, this one, this 24 hours in a day, you divide it by 3, and this one is giving us 8 hours. It means that the duration, the time intervals, you are supposed to take the drugs in every 8 hours. So some people have that tendency that they have get a drug from a doctor or from hospitals, and now they take 3 times a day. They take in the morning, they take at lunchtime, and then they take it in the evening without understanding what they are supposed to take. So once you get this a prescription like this one, it might be 2 times 4, it might be 3 times 3. So it means that to get the time intervals, you should take the 24 hours a day, and then you divide it by the number of times given there. They should give you the correct period between what time and what time a patient is supposed to take a drug. What we call it the OTC. The OCD drug, these are the over-counter drugs. Are normally the drugs which are used to treat mild headache. They can be used to treat stomach upsets. Once you have taken a lot of Vitaly, once you have taken a lot of medicine, then you will be having what we call the stomach upset. So you should be visit a doctor or in a chemist, and then you say your problem, then you will be given a drug which can be used to treat your stomach upsets. So this one here, they can be, what are some of the examples of this one? You talk of painkillers, you talk of the antacids, and also you can talk of the cold or the flu drugs. Now, what are some of the types of drugs? We have what we call the sedative drugs. What are these type of drugs? These are the drugs that are used to suppress anxiety and the relaxing of muscles. The other type of drug we talk about, the antibiotics. The antibiotics type of a drug, these are used to treat the bacteria infections. And we have what we call the tranquilizers drugs. These drugs are what we call the sedatives, or the calming effect without inducing a sleep. Then we have the other type of a drug we call the anesthetics type of a drug. This type of a drug normally they produce a complete or a loss of feeling, and this is normally applied during surgery. So when somebody is going for an operation, is normally injected by using this kind of drugs, whereby they will just cause either a complete loss or they will cause a complete sleep. We are talking about the drug and the drug abuse. Now, what is the drug abuse? Drug abuse, we are going to look at the harmful effect of drugs in the society and the harmful effect of drugs generally. That's one we are going to discuss in our next topic. Is there anybody with a question? Anybody with a question? Yes. I'm asking. Is there anybody with a question? Yes. What is your question?
What if you are going to a doctor and you find that he has given you excess medicine? What will you do with the rest of your medicine?
He has asked that if you go in an hospital and a doctor gives you an excess medicine, what will you do with the rest of the medicine? I want to say that there is no doctor who has a qualified doctor who can give you excess medicine unless that person is a witchcraft. We have come to the end of our lesson. In our next lesson, we are going to talk about the harmful effect of drugs. Thank you.